Hi guys, this video is primarily for students who were not able to attend either of our two Zoom sessions this week. So this is just a quick review for your quiz 4, which is due Sunday. So in your quiz, you're going to be analyzing a monopoly graph, very much like the one you're seeing here on the left. The only difference in your quiz, instead of having prices P8, P7 designated like you see here, and quantities Q0 through Q6 like you see in the graph right here. In your quiz, you'll actually have numbers like real amounts here, like 10, 20, 30, or whatever it is. And then you'll have dollar amounts here for the pricing, okay? So when you're calculating your answers, you won't have to say P8 or P7, you'll just say whatever the dollar amount is or whatever the quantity amount is, okay? So we're going to go through several, I guess you could call them questions uh, that we can ask about this graph, this monopoly market, uh, and figure out how we find the answers using what we're seeing on the graph. Now, I also have shown you here, this is a monopoly. And remember, the monopoly is the firm and the market, because that's why it's a monopoly, because the monopoly firm is monopolizing the entire market for whatever the good or service is that they're producing, okay? Now, when you think about perfect competition, you've got the market, which looks like this, with just your a downward sloping demand and your upward sloping supply or marginal cost. And then you've got your firm, which you're perfectly competitive firm, which has a uh, a perfectly elastic or horizontal demand curve, which is the price, which is the marginal revenue, and they're going to produce, as you know, where marginal cost equals marginal revenue or equals price or equals average revenue. They're all the same thing at the point where they produce. Okay, so but we're going to be primarily, I can't get that kind of, we're going to be primarily looking at the monopoly. There you go, the monopoly. Okay, I'm trying to get the marginal cost curve. Uh, I'm trying to get marginal cost to equal average total cost at its minimum, which is where, as a review, where a perfectly competitive market is in long run equilibrium when every firm is making zero economic profit, which is what you see right here. And is also productively efficient because they're at the minimum of average total cost, and they're allocatively efficient because marginal cost equals marginal benefit, which is what the demand curve is, marginal benefit. I could actually add that in there. I could say equals marginal benefit, right? Okay, so but once again, let's just concentrate over here on our monopoly. So the first thing we want to find is the profit maximizing quantity and price, and that's easy, right? We just look at where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which is right here. This is marginal private cost, which is right here. So the quantity is Q3, and then we move up straight up from there to the demand curve and find the price at P6. Okay. And then how do we know? Well, first of all, is there, and how do we know if there is a negative externality in this market? Well, we know that there is because we see a higher marginal social cost curve up here. So we have a negative externality in this market creating an additional marginal social cost. And we have the same thing over here in our perfectly competitive market right here. We've got a higher marginal social cost curve. So we see a negative externalities in both of these markets, okay? What is the total revenue at the profit maximizing quantity and the price? Well, we simply look at where that is right here, Q3, P6, and the revenue is going to be P6 times Q3. That's going to be your total revenue, right? Price times quantity, okay? What is the total profit at the profit maximizing quantity and price? Well, that's going to be the difference between price and average total cost. So P6 minus P2 times Q3, right? Times the quantity. So this area right here defines total profit, okay? What's going to be the revenue maximizing quantity? The revenue, so where's total revenue? I should probably add in there just so we're not confused. Total revenue, right? Well, I spent a long time on this when I was in the class. Now I can't get to that guy. Come here. Oh, well, anyway. I don't know why. Okay, here we go. Anyway, you're going to see a revenue maximum where marginal revenue is zero. This is what the total revenue curve would look like, even though if it was to scale, it'd be way up here. But this is the shape of it. It's a parabola that has a zero slope or no change, where marginal revenue is zero, because marginal revenue is the derivative or the change plotted of this curve right here of total revenue. So as long as total revenue is changing in a positive direction, is getting, is increasing, the marginal revenue curve is going to be positive, above zero from here up, right? The reason it's downward sloping is because the change is decreasing, right? There's a lot of change here, so we have a higher, marginal revenue, because this is, once again, this is plotting the change of this curve right here, right? So as we produce more and more, the total revenue is marginally increasing less and less until it doesn't increase at all right there. So this is where there's no change. So we know that's where it's maximum. So we know that total revenue is going to be maximum at quantity Q4, because that's where marginal revenue is zero, right? So now, what is the somehow I didn't have, let's see, total. Oh, but this should be a total revenue. I don't know how I got rid of that somehow. Okay, there we go. Anyway, so we've done that. So now, where's the demand curve? Where's the demand curve? Inelastic, where is it elastic? Where is it unelastic? So you can go back and review your chapter on demand, the price elasticity of demand, and you'll remember that as long as total revenue is increasing, the demand curve is going to be elastic, because that what it means is as we move down the demand curve, price is changing, but it's changing in the negative direction. Price is decreasing while quantity increases. So by definition, what elasticity is the percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price. So it's going to be, that expression is going to be over 1, greater than 1, as long as the numerator, the percentage change in quantity, which in this case is increasing, which is going to increase revenue, is greater than the decrease in the percentage change in price in the denominator, which is with decreased revenue. Price is going down, it decreases revenue. quantity going up increases revenue. And as long as the quantity going up is greater than the price going down, total revenue is increasing. And we know that total revenue is going to increase as long as marginal revenue is above zero, is positive. So we can simply look up here and say, okay, that means that from price P4, right, because this is where marginal revenue is zero. So going up to the demand curve from there, we see that any price above P4 is going to be elastic, because that's where marginal revenue is positive and total revenue is increasing. At price P4, marginal revenue is zero. Total revenue is not changing at all. It's up here, at maximum, where the slope of this point right here is zero, right? So that is where the demand curve is unit elastic, where the percentage change in quantity equals the percentage change in the price. So if the numerator in a fraction equals the denominator, then the total expression is 1. Unit elastic means it equals 1. That expression, the percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price, equals 1. So we know that the demand curve is unit elastic at this point right here, the quantity Q4, price of P4, price of P4, right? And then obviously any price below P4 from here down, total revenue is decreasing. So price, the percentage change in price, the denominator is now bigger than the numerator, the percentage change increase in quantity. So the fraction, or that the expression for elasticity, is less than 1 from here down, because we're losing, as the firm produces more, their total revenue is decreasing, because the decrease in price percentage change, a decrease in price, is greater than the percentage increase in quantity. Okay, so that's how we know. Now we're going to look at a last thing here. Where's the productively efficient in quantity? And we know that's where average total cost is minimum, and we know that is where average total cost equals marginal private cost. That's always going to be the minimum point of average total cost. So this firm would be productively efficient at quantity Q4. Okay. Now we're going to assume that the government imposes a per unit tax equal to the marginal external cost. So if we look back up here, we can say, well, what is that? Well, I've got this little red stick right here to make that easy to see. The marginal social cost curve is greater or higher than the marginal private cost curve at an amount equal to my red stick, okay? So what is the dollar amount, or what is the, how can we define that? Well, in this graph right here, we need to move down to this point where we have actual values, and we can see that that would be P6 minus P1 would be the value of the tax, or the dollar amount. If there were dollar amounts, it would be whatever the dollar amount is at P6 minus the dollar amount at P1. That would give you the amount, the per unit amount of this tax, so that it would equal the marginal social cost created by the negative externality. Okay. So what is the profit of maximizing the quantity and price associated with the tax? Well, this is a little bit tricky. The way you want to think about that is, there's now, because of the tax, there's a new marginal cost curve for this firm, because they're having to pay this tax. So now their marginal cost curve is here. So where does that new higher marginal cost curve equal marginal revenue? Right here. So you've got a quantity now, Q2, because of the tax, and a price of P7, right there, okay? Q2 P7 is where they're gonna operate after the tax. So what's the total profit now after the tax? And so in order to find that out, we just need to look at the new price and look at the difference between the new price P7 and at that point at quantity Q2, what's the average total cost P3. So the profit's going to be P7 minus P3 times the quantity Q2, right? This rectangle area right here, right there, okay, right there. All right, that's the total profit. Now, next question, what would be the portion of the per unit tax paid by the consumer? The easiest way to figure this out or to get this answer is just to look at the increase in the price from where the price was before the tax and where the price was after the tax. So that's going to be, so that amount right there, the difference between P7 and P6 is going to be the amount of the tax, of the full tax that the consumer would have to pay. So whatever these dollar amounts are, you would just take the dollar amount P7, the new price, and subtract from that the old price, and get the portion of the tax that the consumers would have to pay. And then when you're looking at the portion that the producer would have to pay, it's whatever's left, right? So you know the dollar amount of the tax, you know the dollar amount of the portion that the consumer has to pay. So you simply subtract the portion that the consumer is paying of the tax from the total dollar amount of the tax, and you'll get the portion that the producer has to pay. Easy enough, right? And then lastly, what happens to deadweight loss in the monopoly firm and what we're going to call welfare loss in the perfectly competitive market? So the monopoly firm / market, in this unique case, the tax is actually going to increase deadweight loss, or actually create a deadweight loss that was not there before. Why? Because of just the coincidence that the marginal social cost created a point right here that would be socially optimum, right? This is where this firm, or this market, a monopoly firm / market, is socially optimum, because this is where marginal social cost equals marginal social benefit. Now, remember, when there's only one demand curve, marginal private benefit and marginal social benefit are equal. It's all just this one demand curve. So a marginal private benefit equals marginal social benefit, where this is equal to marginal social cost is where is the socially optimum output, which is Q3, which is also, because it's a monopoly, where this firm is going to operate, because that's where marginal revenue equals their marginal private cost, and that happens to be where their demand curve is. So they were operating at the socially optimum quantity before the tax. The tax pushed them up to here, so it created a deadweight loss here, okay? So the tax actually, in this case, didn't do what the government probably wanted it to do, okay? So, or it had a negative impact in the market, even though, so anyway, That's not necessarily a realistic, but this is actually a free response, a question from one of the prior AP exams, so I wanted you to see it. Now, over just really quickly, what's different over here is where the perfectly competitive market was operating before a tax. They were here where marginal private cost equals marginal social benefit, and that because the optimum quantity in this case is a lower quantity, Q2, at a higher price up here. Before the tax, there was a welfare loss because the negative externality created a cost to society that created what we call a welfare loss, a loss of welfare, to the full society, to the society as a whole, that is equal to this triangle right here. So when this market is taxed and it moves from here to here, then you get rid of this welfare loss. So in this situation, the tax accomplished what it was meant to accomplish. And really quickly, the consumer would pay whatever the difference is here in the price change from here to here. So the difference between P3 and P2, and the producer would pay the portion of the tax, which is P3 minus P1 right here. The producer would pay the difference between P2 and P1, right? If it was this type of a model, which is modeling a perfectly competitive market. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the quiz. Good luck. I'm sure you will do very well.